So let's face it, the Venom series has never exactly been a critical darling or particularly beloved by fans. Done on a relatively modest scale for Sony's Spider-Verse and shackled by a PG-13 rating, this Tom Hardy-led franchise has, surprisingly enough, printed money for its home studio. While they've never risen above modest turn-your-brain-off B-movie fare, you have to admit they've been much better than the other live-action Spider-Verse offerings like Madame Web and Morbius. With this billed as the last dance for the character at Sony, does this short-lived franchise end on a high, if indeed it is the end? Here's the thing. If you dug the other Venom movies, you'll probably get a kick out of this one too. So in it, Eddie Brock, once again played by Tom Hardy, and his symbiote pal Venom are on the run following the events of Venom Let There Be Carnage, being pursued by both adversaries that are human and not. So this is an unapologetically low-stakes superhero movie reminiscent of the kind of fare Fox used to turn out in the 2000s. With a barely 90-minute running time, and oh yes, that 110-minute listed running time includes a full 20 or so minutes of credits, it zips along at an agreeable enough pace. Tom Hardy seems to be having a good time voicing the increasingly agreeable symbiote. At the same time, his human host, Eddie Brock, who started the franchise as a hard-driving journalist, has become more of a likable meathead in the vein of Marlon Brando's Terry Malloy in On the Waterfront. This is the second film this year where Tom Hardy has channeled Marlon Brando after the bike riders, and I have to say, seems to be a bit of a rut he's getting stuck in. Whenever I watch a Tom Hardy movie now, I do feel like I'm just watching kind of a feature-length Marlon Brando impersonation, and I would like to see him stretch a little bit, but I digress, and still the vibe does work well enough for the character. So for the first half of The Last Dance, Venom seems primed to be the worst of the series, with Eddie and Venom's trip to Mexico coming to an end as they find themselves hunted by a military group led by Chiwetel Ejiofor's Strickland, who's collecting symbiotes for Juno Temple's Dr. Teddy Payne. Venom 3's villain is impressively lame, even by recent Marvel standards, with Andy Serkis's Null, the creator of the symbiotes, who's been imprisoned by them only on screen fleetingly. All of the action is devoted to Venom fighting off monsters sent to recover the Codex, and it's just the same kind of monster over and over and over again. Now, this Codex holds the key to Null's escape and lives on in Eddie and Venom. The film chugs along with Rhys Ifans turning up as a little bit of comic relief as a UFO groupie who, along with his family, bonds with Eddie. Meanwhile, a lengthy trip to Las Vegas feels like paid product placement for Paris Las Vegas, with the silliness ramped up as Venom hits the slots. The whole Vegas section is laughably filmed in the IMAX aspect ratio, despite being mostly played for giggles, so clearly someone somewhere wanted the town to look as appealing to tourists as possible. But hey, I guess you gotta underwrite the budget somehow. But just when you're ready to write off the third film entirely, the movie finally does kick into high gear for a rather satisfying last half hour. Here, Venom The Last Dance finally delivers the Venom film that we've really wanted from the start, with lots of symbiotes turning minor characters like Clark Backo's scientist Christmas into people you want to see play a bigger role in the franchise if it was to go on. Yet the movie also unforgivably wastes a ton of talented actors. Chiwetel Ejiofor has a nothing role as the stern military man hunting down Eddie, while Juno Temple is utterly wasted in a generic scientist role. At least for her, a potentially bigger presence down the road if the franchise continues could be in the cards, but if this is a one-off, they really gave her nothing to do, which is nuts if you've seen how good she is in action mode during Fargo's latest season. In the end, like all the other Venom movies, this is truly a mixed bag. Director Kelly Marcel is making her directorial debut after working as a writer and producer on the other movies. She certainly is as capable behind the camera as any of the other directors who've worked on the franchise, and she delivered a fun movie, with the last half hour offering us the best take on the character we've seen so far. But I dare say, it's maybe too little to redeem the franchise in a really big way. None of the films have been offensively bad, but with Hardy in the lead role and some of the cast members brought in throughout the franchise, including Michelle Williams, who's totally MIA from this one, the Venom series should have been bigger and a whole lot better. It was fine as a whole, but really is fine good enough anymore, and I give this one a pretty middling 6 out of 10. I was more or less entertained by it, but hey, I mean, you could watch this streaming and not really miss much.
Edit. I need more money.